Welcome to this morning's webinar. We're going to cover hoof trimming in BoviSync. I want to highlight some ideas of what producers are doing in BoviSync in regards to hoof trimming. We have some reports we're going to go through, and we can touch on protocols, and we will be available to follow up on any questions that come up during the webinar. My name is Clay Reese. I am the tech lead here at BoviSync. My background is managing dairy farms and working most recently with reporting in BoviSync and data needs of companies that support our allied customers. Let me introduce Roger Olson.
Yes, good morning. I'm Roger Olson. I've been a dairy specialist for the Upper Midwest for Zinpro for the last 14 years. Prior to that, I've actually managed and owned a 1,200 cow dairy, had a few inventions, and been involved with dairy nutrition, some other items like that.
Thanks, Roger. So when you do some consulting on hoof trimming for dairies in your current role, is that correct?
Yes, 95% of my time is on farms in the Upper Midwest, looking at lameness related to health issues, and of course, records analysis is a big part of that.
So you're introduced to a new dairy, or dairy you haven't been at in a while. What is your first step with records?
The first thing I'm going to look at is the data. Is the data believable? Is there months missing of information? Is there inconsistency on coding? Anything like that that makes me suspect that this is not good data. So if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. So I tend to try. I work very hard in those situations where the data looks not the best to get it cleaned up, and both from the standpoint of how the trimmers on the dairy are coding, and then how the data is being entered into BoviSync, etc.
In BoviSync, do you have some reports that you use over and over again, or you just go to the report map? How do you work with BoviSync in particular?
What I actually do in Zinpro is we actually take the data. On farm. I look at the reports that are in BoviSync, and then when I do an analysis, typically what I'll do is before I get to the farms, I'll try and do an analysis from BoviSync where I do data dump some information, and we have our own spreadsheet that we do use, but it's very, very, very similar to BoviSync. And what that allows me to do is I have a lot better idea what things I need to look at on the farm. What are the biggest issues that probably need to be solved first? And if it's an old customer, the charts that I look at actually tell me, are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Are we making goal? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
What do you evaluate as far as recorded lesions? You mentioned uniformity or some kind of pattern in how they're recording things. What do you look for in the remarks or lesions that are recorded for the hoof trimming events?
Are they consistent codes?
Okay.
I want to make sure that the 90+% of the lesions that I see in the Upper Midwest would consist of digital dermatitis or warts, foot rot, lines, sole ulcers, and toe ulcers. That's going to catch the vast majority of the lesions that I see on most dairies. There are certain dairies that have unique special situations, maybe a real high wear situation where we have a lot of thin sole, or maybe we've had a heifer raising issue where we have created a lot of medial claw rotation or corkscrew feet. Depends on the situation as to how I react to the data that is actually there.
And when you say sole ulcers and toe ulcers, that would encompass most of the white line diseases recorded, or not? Or is that
Actually,
separate?
they would be separate. The toe would be anything that would be in if you took 3 fingers on the front of the toe on the underside. You went about three finger widths back, about 3 inches. That's gonna anything that's in an area where we call a toe lesion. Toe ulcer would occur right in the back, right about here, and a white line is always going to be off on the side and the back.
Okay. So, just want to walk through a couple things in BoviSync for our audience, or particularly like a consultant that might be using BoviSync for first or second time. First of all, you log into Herd. You can get access to the Herd simply by creating a user account and asking the farm to add you to their permissions. But once you have those permissions, you can log into the farm in BoviSync, and we're gonna go to the report map to get started. This is a great place to see things and find things, particularly with the hoof trimming information.
Mm-hmm.
It's under the disease and health category. And we can go to the hooves. And so you start off with just how they're recording things, right, Roger?
Yes.
So
yes.
let's start by month. So this particular one, we're looking at trim events, just they're recorded by month in order, going back a year. Mm-hmm. So fairly consistent values here, I would say, just in the order of magnitude numbers.
Yeah, those numbers make sense to me. They look reasonable. I would, looks like a duck. Looks like a possible good data.
So a couple things about this report. This is an event report. So this is the actual events recorded with trims. It's going to be filtered. So if we want to see what it actually is filtering, we can go in here, and we're looking for anything that has a specific event type that contains the word trim. So that would be maintenance trims and hoof trim events. The date range is a year. So you can see the 1 year ago. Every time we open this report, it will go back a year, included that. If we look at September 2024, it's only encompassing half of the month right now. That explains why there's only 78 events recorded. In the report itself, if we actually drill down into a month, we can see the individual events and the individual animals. So, for example, we have some animals here that probably were dry cows. Oh, these are heifers. So we have lactation group here equal to 0. Let's go ahead and click on this one. We have a heifer that got trimmed. So she got trimmed before she calved. Well, if we want to go actually see that event, we can go to here, and we'll see the, oh, there we go. And here we see that October trim event. Actually want to see what was recorded, we can click that, and we can see the technician. So on the hoof events by category and limb, we're able to look at what actually got recorded for a lesion on those dairies. We actually do record wraps separately. So it's another line, if you will, or another event, but it would be the same hoof trimming event. This is a pivot report. So we're actually pivoting by the limb that it was recorded on. Not every dairy is going to record the limb that was affected, but it is an option when you're choosing the events, and we actually hope they do record that event. And we make it easy in the app to have the buttons associate that, and we pick the lesion. So what jumps out to you here, Roger?
So when I look at this, wraps to me, with what I do as a consultant, mean very, very little. It could be a wrap from a wart. It could be a wrap from a foot rot. It could be a wrap from a white line that somebody tried to fix. So I'm not, the wraps really are kind of benign to me. I'm worried about what the actual lesions are, which we do have white lines, we have toe ulcers, we have warts, we have corns. So those look solid. They make sense to me. So, and blocks, when I look at this, blocks I kind of treat like a wrap. A block is a treatment. It's not the actual lesion. So if there's a block there, it could have been a white line, it could have been a toe ulcer, it could have been a toe ulcer, et cetera, et cetera. So So those I don't worry so much about. From a management perspective, they make perfect sense that we need to get the wrap off, we need to get the block, need to get the block checked, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of lesions and what they mean to me, this looks pretty clean, and I'm pretty happy with it.
I guess it's my observation too that digital dermatitis often occurs on the rear feet. That's at least where we record it.
Yes.
Is it surprising that it's that different, that disparity? There's barely any recorded on the front legs.
That's pretty normal. It's
okay.
All the information that we do, we do data dumps every once in a while. We compare, and it's like 98% of DD occurs in the front, in the rear, the rear feet, the rear claws. Pretty normal. And as a matter of fact, actually, most every lesion that we have of the big 6 or the big 5 occur in the back feet.
Mm-hmm.
The non-infectious, the sole ulcers, the white lines, the toe ulcers, most of the time occur in the back feet, and a lot of it's got to do with the way the way the physiology of how the cow is built. The back legs, it's from the hoof up to the body, it's bone on bone on bone. And when she walks, I actually have a really cool video of a cow walking in a treadmill in slow motion. And the back feet, you can just see the concussion that when they hit the floor, the claw actually shakes. And then that's causing a lot of extra concussion. So something not good is going to happen when there's a lot of concussion. As you compare that to the front feet are actually, the front legs are attached by ligaments. So they have more of a shock absorbing effect. So you don't have near the amount of concussion. You just don't have near the problems in front feet. And the infectious rot and warts, I think the plumbing of the cow probably has something to do with that. Because obviously we know what comes out the back end of the cow. So
sure. So when you're looking at a dairy and we start seeing a lot of the thin soles, what management changes are contributing to that, or management's contributing to that, and what are some recommendations associated with that when you see it in the herd?
When I see a lot of thin soles, the first thing I'm going to think about is recycled coarse sand, and rough floors. Things that make those two items even worse is if you have granite in your sand, or you have granite as the aggregate in your concrete, and the mortar on the concrete is popped off, so you have all these granite rocks sticking up, and they're very abrasive, very wearing. Those two things are the first thing that I'm going to think about. And third thing would be somewhat distant is longer walks. Obviously can have an effect on that. Trimming, improper trimming can absolutely have a concern. But usually it's got something to do more with the sand and the granite and the floor.
So I guess on an ongoing basis, if a herd really wants to prioritize reducing lameness, what's some practices that they can institute that are going to minimize lameness in their herd over time?
It's kind of cliche, but having good records and actually paying attention to your records and having goals for the lesions that you're looking at is huge. Because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. It is really true. When we're talking about, let's take for instance sole ulcers. My goal for sole ulcers would be down to 1% on an annual basis. The cows that would actually have that lesion. If you're at 5, you may think you have more than you probably should have, but when you've got 5,000 cow, you really can't. You don't know. You have to have a good system of measure. So number one is have a good system of measure, at least on an annual basis. Record where you're at and figure out if you got better or worse as time goes along. And if sole ulcers is your problem, the first thing that I'm going to go look at is is often considered to be a standing up disease. The more cows stand, there's a pedal bone inside of the claw, which is most of the inside of that claw capsule. Is that bone is suspended up in the claw capsule by lamina, and so most of the weight of that cow is actually suspended in the claw by those lamina. And if she stands too much, it's kind of getting older. Yeah, things kind of go south on you, and that pedal bone will start to drop. And there's a sharp spot on the back part of the pedal bone that actually rubs on the sole, on the inside of the sole. And when that happens enough, that it's going to ulcerate, and it's going to turn into an ulcer and abscess that's going to eventually grow out of the claw in 45 to 60 days, and then we'll actually see it on the external part of the claw. So I'm going to go looking for anything related to standing. Could be time budgets. Do the stalls are the stalls very uncomfortable, so they don't want to lay down? Does it take way too long to milk the cows? And that when I say milking, that includes the whole entire process from the time they leave the pen to the time they get back to the pen. Some people milk pretty fast, but for whatever reason, the cows have a lot of time to lollygag, standing and waiting for somebody to open gates, etc. Treating cows in headlocks can be a concern if it gets to be well over 45 minutes. That's contributing to time when she's got to stand on her hooves. So anything that would get in the way of her having time to lay down. And the goal would be at least 12 hours a day, which is tough, but it is doable.
What role does stocking density or stall availability have in time budgets?
It's a pretty big deal. I will say, I am from the Midwest, and I am from Wisconsin, and we overcrowd. I understand the whole temptation of overcrowding. Overcrowding to me makes sense until you get to the last cow where it starts to cost you more than what you gain. And I've done this with time budgets on a number of herds. There are herds where they milk really fast, i.e., they get their cows. The cows leave the pen, and they get back into that pen in less than an hour. They spend very little time in headlocks. They spend very little time anywhere else getting treated. They have awesome stalls where they lay down. They approach that stall, and within 15 seconds they're laying down. And they do a lot of things really well. There are herds that actually have more lying time, if you will, because that's really what is kind of the final measure. There are herds where they're at 105% of stall capacity. The lying time may only be 10.5 hours, and there are herds that are 140% of stall capacity, with everything is really tip top, doing really well, and they'll have 11.25 hours of standing time. So it's not only just stall over capacity of stalls, it's how comfortable are the stalls, how fast do you milk, how fast do you treat, and how much do you stay out of the way to let cows just be cows.
So I guess my assumption is that you're not able to always observe cows for 24 hours a day to come up with a time budget. So when you go in and evaluate a herd, what are some things you're looking for as far as lying down, feed bunks?
Sure. So anytime I go into the dairy, I want to see even feed distribution pretty much everywhere. So, there's pushing up feed. You need to be doing that consistently, probably at least every hour, depending on your situation. But not only is it just feed push up, you want to make sure there's feed availability everywhere along that bunk. I call it squaring off the bunk. Sometimes at certain time intervals of the day, you just need to go through and grab where there's excess feed in this portion and move it 20 feet down to the left where there's a hole. Cows tend to eat in the same spots most of the time, so feed distribution everywhere is a really big deal. When you're in the pen, one of the things that I look at is just how fast the cows lay down. And that 15 seconds seems to be a pretty good number. If they really like to stall, from the time they approach with their front feet to a stall, the time they lay down, it should be less than 15 seconds on average. If you have 20 head and they're all taking a minute and a half to lay down on average, there's something about that stall she doesn't like. As
Is that
opposed to,
something you've seen consistently on poorly designed freestalls? That
yes, absolutely, for sure, for sure. That's not peer reviewed documented. That's just my personal experience. Some other people actually count number of cows laying in stalls, perching in stalls, just standing in the pens. That's great. I have no problem with that. But if you really want to evaluate how well they like the stall, is just watch them lay down, and that'll tell you a lot. And that 15-second rule isn't perfect, but it's pretty applicable in most situations.
is there any place for locomotion scoring in your mind? Anything beyond just the lesion scoring? I guess one of my concerns is that record keeping, disease diagnosis changes over time. Like, how do we guard against that?
So locomotion scoring, yes, actually works pretty well because it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 to 90% accurate when you have people that are really good at it, that have done it for a while. And there are definitely situations, and I've been doing this for 15 years, 14 years. There are herds where they were doing a great job of recording. For whatever reason, the trimming crew changed or whatever. The data became less quality than what it was previously. So when I don't have good data trimming analysis wise, I will actually locomotion score. And
Okay.
it does take some time because you just literally got to find a good spot to watch cows and sit and watch and do a number of pens. And what I like to do when I locomotion scores is I like to catch the fresh cow pen if it's possible, and then do depending on the size of the herd. The bigger the herd, the lower the percentage that we can probably do. But I try and do a lot of mid lactation, higher mid lactation cattle, and that will tell me pretty consistently how many animals do we have with a lesion. The reason locomotion scarring works pretty well is cows are a prey animal, and when they have some type of an ailment, whether it's a hoof lesion or fasciitis or whatever, they try to hide that event because they don't want to be the animal that sticks out and the lion comes and eats them, if you will. And but as they have more pain in their feet, there's some things that you can key off of: the hump on their back, how much their head bobs. The more they have a lesion, the more likely they're going to hump on their back because it takes pressure off where the lesions are. Most every lesion an animal has occurs in the back of the lesion or of the claw.
Do you think there's value or a need to train on-farm staff on locomotion scoring to identify lameness before it becomes a major problem?
In all cases, yes. All dairymen should have a number of employees that can actually at least identify these factors that are causing locomotion scoring going up. The hump on their back or head bobbing, short striding of the feet. Not only is it, maybe they don't necessarily have to know and constantly do locomotion scoring what percent of the herd is a 2 versus a 4, but they got to know what those parameters are so they can actually help pick lame cows.
Is that an opportunity on dairies to do more training with some of the cow
Absolutely.
pushers?
Absolutely. Yes. A number of the bigger multi-site locations that I do that on an annual basis. It's kind of a special deal where we make sure everybody makes it an emphasis for a couple of days, and it really helps.
One of the things that we often do when we introduce BoviSync to a dairyman as a better tool and even when we're doing setups, is we on the app, one of the first things we add is a screen just for parlor cow pushers, people that aren't necessarily doing hoof trimming, but a place where they can easily add lame cows and move beyond writing things down on a list or the notepad that gets handed off. And the reason being is that when they push that button in the app, then the process starts. Sure, it'd be great if we could just isolate that cow and trim her right now. But on most dairies, you got to have a trimmer available. You have to have room for that cow right now. So we're going
Yes.
to put that cow on a list and create a chore for her to get trimmed. And so hopefully she gets followed up and there isn't cows slipping through the cracks. And I think that's a really big difference and opportunity on most areas, just to make it really easy to capture those
That
cows.
it's huge. There's all sorts of systems that have been created, paper or whatever. Things always happen. The thing of this is so simple. Everybody understands it, and it doesn't go away. If the trimmer is off for the next 2 days, when he gets back on Wednesday, that's on his list. I gotta take care of these lame cows. And I will say, as a foot person, when you have a lesion, it doesn't take many days to go from not too much of a problem to a fairly big problem. The trick is, it's not really a trick, it's just good management, is identify them and get them to the trimmer as quick as possible within a day or two. And you can prevent a lot of economic loss and a lot of pain and suffering for that cow. And things are just going to go better.
So as a hoof trimmer, what are some things that you want to be watching in the reports, beyond just what you're seeing with the cows, or to uh, essentially communicate what's going on with feet to management or the owners of the farm, add value basically through reports.
So, as a hoof trimmer analysis person, or the hoof trimmer?
As a hoof trimmer, I'm a hoof trimmer. I want to do a great job. I want to make sure it's clear that I am doing the best job I can, and I'm concerned about lameness on the herd.
Sure.
What are some things that I can do with reports in particular?
Yes. So, in BoviSync, it is great to look at a bunch of basically the reports where we show repeat lesions. Let's say we have a white line, and in the last 12 months, we've only had of the animals where we had a repeat, where they came back as a white line again. I would be okay with that. If it was a 0.5%, I'd be really proud. If it was 10%, I'd be a little nervous. So that's a great way for a hoof trimmer to show that I have a low repeat rate. In other words, I'm curing whatever's coming. Most of these whatever's coming to me, I'm getting them cured. I'm doing it properly.
It's not necessarily captured so much at least in BoviSync, but uh, foot baths obviously have a role in minimizing infectious
Absolutely.
disease lesions.
Absolutely.
What
Yes.
are some general recommendations you're running with today? Red flags, that kind of thing with foot baths on the
So
topic of hoof trimming.
sure. So if there's more in the perfect world, in my perfect world, if there is such a thing, the top 20% of the herds that data that I look at, they run around 4% DD and less than 1% foot rot. So if I see numbers that are above that, I want to know why. If they're substantially above that, I would definitely want to know why. And a foot bath is huge when it comes to digital dermatitis and foot rot, because cleanliness and the foot bath are most of the issues, or most of the preventative, or the two issues that we got to deal with. And we could talk for the next 4 days on just foot baths as to what concentrations do we need to be at with what solution, how many days a week. It's so inter farm dependent. I have a really hard time coming up with a perfect recommendation that you should use formaldehyde at 3% for 3 days on 100% of the herds. It doesn't work that way. So how dirty are your hooves? What infection rate are you at? If you have dirty feet and you have a high infection rate, we're going to want to use that foot bath even more. And if it's really low, uh, there are situations where the herd has a very, very low weight, like let's say less than 2%, and the hooves are fairly clean, and they only use a foot bath once a week, and they keep themselves out of trouble and it works great. There are other herds where we need to go literally 6 days a week because they're way overcrowded. The hooves are pretty filthy. We may have came from a fairly serious outbreak where you have a high incident rate. So we just got to go more days, trying to get the incident rate down, trying to keep them clean. And in some cases, we may get the incident rate down, let's say under 4% or 5%. But it's just a really tough environment. We have alley scrapers with a lot of overcrowding. A lot of those, it's really hard to get less than 3 or probably actually 4 days a week. So the way I look at it is if you're really good, if things are really good, take away a day of using the foot bath. And if in a month it starts to go back up again, maybe we weren't as good as we thought, we better add the day back in.
Have you ever had an experience with the pen scoring in BoviSync on the app?
I have not.
Okay. So in the BoviSync app, here, I'll show it to you. The app, when you download it from the Android Play Store and you have permission to the herd, you'll need write permission, but you can record just pen level information. Just here, you click off, you select pen scoring in the herd. First select the herd, select pen scoring, and then you can select locomotion scoring, and then you can pick 1 to 5, and you're just going to record those. So once we save this, we've added some reports in the BoviSync Modern reporting now that I think really make this useful for dairies. So I gotta go ahead and so to find those reports, you can go to the pen maps, it's in there, but you can also just type it in here and you can find the report as well. So this herd has 3 different dates that we recorded locomotion scores. You can drill down to individual pens, but in this case, we're just looking at those dates, and we're kind of missing the legend here. Let me bring the legend back up. There we go. So this is a percentage of or total number of scores, and kind of see on the most recent one we're actually trending up on mildly lame. So in this case, we've got them categorized. Moderately lame would be the 3 score.
Yes.
Normal 1. So got this description over here if you want to go. Just for people wanting that reference. I know you know these, Roger, but I think it's good for other people to be able to see that.
Absolutely. So
it's just a useful thing that's built into BoviSync that I don't think enough people are aware that it's there. We can look at these, what we're recording over time.
Now that I know that that's actually available, I will definitely have some dairies that I will definitely highly suggest they use that. So that was awesome.
There's some other things in the pen scoring that might be useful as well, but this is one to highlight for this particular webinar. So yeah, I think it's pretty great.
Yes, it is actually. For a foot guy's perspective, it's awesome.
Well, any parting words you have about BoviSync, hoof trimming, recommendations that you might have?
I can't undersell really good data, consistently done. Thing I really like about BoviSync is for a person like me, I don't have to go get a backup. I just have to get permission, and I can access it when and wherever I want. That is really valuable to me. I really appreciate that. Um, and, yeah, so number one, just have a really good system to keep track of where you're at and try things and see if you get better or not with the lesions that you're at.
Well, once again, Roger, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks everybody for the webinar. Anything you want to find out or follow up on the webinar, you can head over to the support page. There's some information there. And feel free to reach out to me, creese@bovisync.com if you have any particular questions or need specific help. And as always, support@bovisync.com as well. Thank you.